We have ongoing negotiations with Iran that hasn't stopped. We're in the final throes of what will be a very, very good deal that will not allow in any way, shape, or form nuclear weapons, etc. And the Strait will open up right away. It'll open up immediately upon signing, which could be in 2 or 3 days.
Here's the latest this morning. President Donald Trump saying peace talks with Tehran are back on track and promising total victory for the U.S. in just 2 weeks. Israel and Iran pledging to stop the fighting following a flare-up in hostilities over the weekend. Joining us now in Washington, Bloomberg's Anne-Marie. AMH, good morning.
Good morning, Jonathan. Well, the president is still holding on to this fragile ceasefire in the Middle East and wants to make sure the negotiations continue. And last night, when he was briefing us reporters in New York City before he did head down back to Washington, D.C. in the White House, he said 2 to 3 days, potentially, we could see a breakthrough when it comes to negotiations. At the same time, many individuals say, we've heard this continuously from this president, and yet we are still in the middle of this conflict. For a little bit more clarity, Lieutenant General Karen Gibson of Academy Securities joins me now in studio. Lieutenant General, thank you so much for your time. Good morning. Let's just start with where we are right now. How fragile is this ceasefire, given the clashes we saw this week between Tehran and Israel?
So I think the clashes between Tehran and Israel were probably the greatest threat to the ceasefire that we've seen since April 8th. You know, a considerable escalation. And I'd say it wasn't just the exchange between Israel and Iran, but also Iran escalating on the 3rd of June by striking purely civilian infrastructure at the Kuwait International Airport. And then over the weekend, the one-way attack drones directed towards commercial vessels. I think all of that marked a significant escalation. I'm grateful that it doesn't look like a return to full-on war at this time, with both Iran and Israel standing down. But I think what it risks, as we throw in now that we're going to try to restrain Israel and control Hezbollah, that the diplomatic agenda and the things that need to be negotiated is expanding faster than diplomats and negotiators can handle.
It feels like red lines continuously turn pink. What would be, do you think, a proper red line that this administration would say, the regime has broken the ceasefire?
Well, I think if we saw significant casualties, either significant civilian casualties, American casualties, our defensive measures at our military bases in the Middle East have been strong. So that's not been an issue. But I think just something that was really untoward, and again, perhaps a purely civilian target at which there was significant damage might require something else. But I think the fact that the president isn't reacting kinetically is an indicator that he, per his remarks, has hopes that these negotiations are actually going to deliver something.
Does at the same time, does this embolden Iran?
You mean that we're not retaliating?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think there are some that would argue that the president's stern words to Netanyahu in the last week or so emboldened Iran by showing perhaps that there was some daylight between us and an important ally. But I'm not sure that our restraint emboldens him. I think our restraint is actually a strength.
I want to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, because you're giving all of your advice to clients in the financial services. How are they thinking about the Strait of Hormuz? Because we actually have reporting that some barrels are getting out, like from ADNOC, from the UAE, and some individuals also turning off their transponders so they're able to get through what is going on in terms of the Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz and then out through the U.S. blockade.
Yeah, certainly some is getting out. As I understand, a lot of it is sailing through the Omani side of the Strait and with some assistance from the U.S. without being a formal escort. And so it is not entirely blocked. But it's going to be a long time, even under the best of conditions, before that flow returns to what we saw before the conflict. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that we'll see a significant slowdown there.
Secretary Rubio, when he was testifying in front of Congress, talked about how Iran is mining the Strait. Do you know how much of the Strait is still mined?
I don't think anyone knows. I think it's very difficult. It's very difficult to prove. We are looking forward to, I think, both France and the UK perhaps announcing at an upcoming G7 meeting a plan to demine after a peace deal is inked. So it's going to take some time before we're able to prove or disprove the mining.
How long does it take to demine the Strait of Hormuz? Because there's 2,000 ships stuck.
Yeah.
And you have to have the confidence as a vessel to bring your crew through the Strait of Hormuz and make sure that it's safe for passage.
So I think, some of that will also depend on Iran and the kind of mines that they tell us they've used. Can they narrow down where this should be examined? And some of it will also be demonstrated by an ability to transit freely without any kind of attack.
How is Academy Securities thinking about the fact that the Houthis are now involved, at least when it comes to targeting Israeli vessels?
Sure. So I've always worried about the Houthis getting involved, and I'm kind of surprised it took this long, but grateful. Ostensibly they say they're only going to target Israeli vessels or vessels that are associated with Israel. But as we've talked about before, the decision to sail is a commercial business decision based on assessed risk. And I think regardless of their words, we will see an increasing number of shippers who just choose to forego the Red Sea and the potential risk and sail all the way around the continent of Africa.
Well, right now, that's the one real outlet. Mm-hmm. Is it your understanding that the Houthis have not been involved because they are basically getting capital from Saudi Arabia?
Certainly that's an option. That's possible. I think I have not seen that evidence, but it doesn't mean that's not the case. I think they're probably not getting the kinds of funding and resources they used to get from Iran. They are an Iranian-aligned proxy. And I think it's also important to remember that any of these proxies are still, to an extent, independent actors. And while their interests may be aligned with Iran, they're not necessarily their puppets.
How long do you think we could see potentially the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait becoming another choke point that vessels really need to be concerned about?
Yeah, so I think that, the Houthis have proved reluctant to get engaged, and that their recent involvement was really driven by Israeli action against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Prospects for a peaceful solution in Lebanon could take a while, and really I think is the new wild card that we've introduced. So we started out, our overwhelming objective to control Iran's nuclear ambitions. Now we've added, we got to unstick the Strait, and now there's a third bucket of things to negotiate, and that's related to Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel.
But that's because the Iranians have demanded that.
Yes. Again, it's an incredibly complex negotiation at this point, but I agree, yes. It's Iran that have insisted that this also be part of the talks.
Do you think that this administration is giving up on some of their red lines? The president now just talks about nuclear weapons, but for years it's been three major issues, and you just mentioned a few of them. Nuclear weapons, as well as not providing funding to proxies, as well as ending their ballistic missile program.
Yes, exactly. Those were our three principal buckets going in. I think this is another one of the asymmetries, and frankly a concern for Israel, that we might settle for lesser concessions regarding missiles and proxies. We're not within range of missiles and proxies, and Israel and our Gulf partners live in that area. And so I think it is entirely possible that, or at least the Israelis may believe it's possible, that we will come to a negotiation that doesn't quite meet their requirements in those areas.
There's been a lot of reporting about tense phone conversations between Netanyahu and President Trump. What do you make of these phone calls and this reporting?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, certainly the president's comments are often unpredictable, whether it's to the press.
He's saying he calls the shots. Do you think he's actually calling the shots right now?
Well, Israel is an important ally, and Israel is reliant on the United States for many things, but they are a sovereign nation. And Benjamin Netanyahu is a head of state who can make his own decisions.
I just want to briefly ask you about this idea that Taiwan may actually get more in line with the United States. We have fresh reporting when it comes to export curbs to China. How many people are still asking about what's going on in the Taiwan Strait, given the fact that we have this conflict in the Middle East?
Yeah, well, I know Peter Cheer at Academy Securities pays attention to this, and I think that's a great point. It's important not to get so fixated with these tactical developments that really don't change a lot strategically, but it's like children on a soccer ball. It's where all the attention is, but there are so many other things that we need to be paying attention to geopolitically that will affect markets.
Lieutenant General, thank you so much for your time this morning. Jonathan, that was Lieutenant General, of course, Karen Gibson of Academy Securities. Interesting she's saying there, everyone's focused, of course, on what's going on in the Middle East, but you can't forget, of course, China, a massive looming cloud in terms of adversaries for the United States.